Good evening and welcome to the Ombudsman program. My name is Diane Wellborn. I am the Ombudsman and I will be your host for this evening's program. Tonight we've chosen a rather serious but nonetheless extremely important topic. Tonight we're going to be talking about local strategies to deal with bullying. I have with me two individuals who have been working on this topic that are going to enlighten us about some of their local efforts, strategies to help young people who are experiencing bullying. I have with me, first I'd like to introduce Brother Don Neff, who is with the University of Dayton. Thank you very much for coming on the program tonight. And we also have with us Officer Lane, who is with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Thank you so much for coming on as well. I appreciate it. I'd like to start off our program this evening by reminding our viewers that it is a call-in show. So if one has a question out there, they have the number on your screen there, and you would be able to call and get your question out, and we'll get it answered for you. I'd like to start by turning to you two to ask for some definitions of bullying. Sometimes it seems to me it's one of those topics where we all think we know what it is, but let's go over how you all are defining bullying.
Larry?
Okay. Well, when we think of bullying, oftentimes I ask the students I go and talk with, what is bullying? And they usually always have the right answers. They talk about the physical type of bullying, where kids put their hands on them, they hit them, they push them, they shove them, they kick them. So there's physical bullying. Then they talk about verbal bullying, where people call them names or they talk about them, spread rumors about them, those kinds of things. So you've got physical and you have verbal. There's also emotional bullying. And that's oftentimes one of the ones that kids, at least younger kids, forget about. And that's where you don't have to say anything, you don't have to put your hands on them. Emotional bullying can be just done by a look. Or it can be done by isolating kids, because kids all want to be apart. And then the fourth one is the cyberbullying. So when I think of bullying, I think of those four types, and of course there's a lot of different ways it can break down from there.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I would look at it possibly a little bit differently. Certainly those are the characters or the types of bullying. I ask, what is a bully? What is a bully really trying to do? And a bully is one who's trying to destroy. He's trying to build himself or herself up by destroying others. A bully's basic goal is to belittle the individual that he or she is picking on. Male are characteristically they're going to be on the physical side. Girls, women are going to be on the gossip side. And in the whole process of being bullied or bullying somebody is to make me feel a little bit superior. Now the question we ask, and I think this is the important question, bullies are not, should we say, born bullies. They are created, they are made due to the experience that they have received from a home. And that's going to lead them into a variety of different ways of trying to make them feel a little bit better. And once they get into a pattern, they need the support and the encouragement of others. Hence you got what they call the bystanders. And these individuals are possibly, they want recognition from this guy or this girl. I was thinking of some years ago, I was traveling on a plane and a woman was telling me about her daughter, about her son. Is in California. He was going around, he wanted the recognition of this particular girl, and she was a drug dealer. But he was willing to do anything, because in a certain sense what we're saying is they're doing it to get recognition and they need followers. If they didn't have the followers, they wouldn't be a bully. And that'll go literally throughout life, into your domestic relationships, into your work life. But so basically a bully is trying to destroy, to make himself or herself feel better.
All right. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that at this point?
I would totally agree. You know, I always ask kids, why do kids bully? And they always answer the same way. They talk about kids bully because they were bullied themselves. They bully because they're maybe being bullied at home, or oftentimes they say just because they feel bad about themselves. So to me, the bully is always bullying out of his own weakness. And so he looks for somebody, he or she looks for someone who's a little weaker than them, and where they can get the attention to build their own problems up.
Okay, all right. Then I think we want to kind of draw some lines here around these definitions that we've made. There are other types of behaviors that have to do with gang violence that we would not really put in the bullying category. Would you like to say a little bit more about that?
Well, I think obviously there is a fine line sometimes between what bullying is and would it be a crime. Anytime somebody puts their hands on you, it literally could be an assault charge. So even oftentimes they say, well, what can I do? Well, that's where if you're not getting the satisfaction from the local school district or wherever this is taking place, I would never hesitate for a parent to call law enforcement to get them involved. Okay. Because typically bullying will escalate. If it starts with a word, it usually moves forward to something physical, or even more so verbally, and it really has to be nipped early. But gang behavior and other violent behavior, it would be a lot more extreme than that. However, I wouldn't ever say that bullying is not a major problem in the lives of our kids.
Right, right. Yes, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to shine some light on that subject.
I would say also gangs are bullies. You've got a number of bullies coming together because they get support, encouragement from each other, and they're bullying others, because to be a bully means I want to control. And again, I'm thinking of a woman was talking to me some time ago and says, my daughter's boyfriend is insisting that my daughter wear such and such a gown to the prom. And I'm saying, heavens almighty, at that age, he's a junior, he's already controlling. And this is what gangs do. And Larry knows more about this than I. Watching a TV show about Gotti, the mafia. Gotti said, I'm going to be the most powerful person alive. I'm going to be the person everybody fears and respects. And basically he was not getting the attention he needed as a child, and therefore the way to get it was to be a hood, and I'm going to be the greatest hood because then everybody will respect me. So that
the best
brings
bad
it into
guy
crime.
he could be. Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about cyberbullying, which has come on now that we live in such a electronic age and we have all these gadgets. How would you define cyberbullying? Either one of you want to take that one?
I can give the example. In January, I was in Florida, and a young girl came to the rescue of somebody, and the kids immediately said, we're going to get you. And she went to the principal, and the principal said, don't worry about it. She called her home. Mother says, take the bus as usual. The worst part about it, she says, not only being beaten on the bus by most of the girls, but I was on cyber, I was on Facebook within the hour. Kids are trying to get, this day and age, they feel they have to do something special to get recognition on Facebook. Cyberbullying takes a variety of forms, but above all, it's soul destroying, as you've got here
Jessica Logan.
Jessica Logan. But it's going to show up because kids need recognition, and if they can do something and they'll do it on Facebook, and it's between friends.
Cyberbullying is basically, this is more of probably a technical definition. Good. It's bullying by the means of electronics. Okay. So it can be any act that's committed through cell phones, computers, any other personal communication device, and that's basically what it is. And why it's so dangerous, and at least in my opinion, what I've seen, it's amazing when I talk to a lot of different principals, they'll say, I have to spend so much time on Monday putting out the fires that happened on Saturday and Sunday out in the electronic world, where so-and-so has texted something or posted something on Facebook or, forwarded a picture. And so the kids come to school ready to fight. They come to school all angry and upset about things that happened over the weekend in the electronic world. So cyberbullying is really big, and that's the difference that I think parents have to understand. Parents have to understand, especially older folks like myself, who there's always been bullying. I think we've got to realize that. There was bullying when I was a kid, there was bullying when my son was a kid, and there'll be bullying when his children are born and are out there. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever do away with bullies. But the one thing that's changed in 2013 that's different than when I was a kid back in the 70s is that because kids are so connected, because they all got cell phones, they're all on the internet, they're all on Facebook, they're all on YouTube, they're all on all of those electronic things, they're always connected. You know, if you were being bullied on the bus back in the olden days, when you got off the bus, the bullying stopped. If you were being bullied on the playground, when you got off the playground, the bullying stopped because you were away from the bully. Well, these kids, they can't escape it. And even if they don't know what's happening, say Don is bullying me, but how he does it is just by sending you a message and talking about me or a picture. Well, then I hear about it another way. So I don't even have to be involved to really be bullied because of cyberbullying. And I think that that's the real danger. And it's also a danger because kids don't want to tell their parents about it. And because what do typically parents do when they get told something from their kids? Parents have a tendency oftentimes to overreact. And kids are afraid that if they come home and say, hey, Mom, some kid is texting me and either bullying me on my cell phone, Mom's going to snatch that cell phone. Or if it's happening on the internet, Mom's going to take their laptop or their tablet or disconnect them from Facebook. So kids would rather suffer than to lose their connectivity to the world that they live in, which is a whole nother problem and causes the kids to go through even more agony because they're afraid to talk about it.
We are going to come back to that point when we, when a little bit later in the program, when we can give some advice to parents about what to do if they suspect or if they actually know. So save that thought, and we will return to that.
One of the concerns I have pertaining to the bullying in general and the attitude of times of culture or society. Oh, you know, that's been with us all to the end of time. It'll be with us. Rather than recognizing the fact that humanity has got faults, and we've got to recognize what the golden rule is all about. If people know what the golden rule, and many kids today have never heard, do as to others as you would have others do unto you. But the question is, if we, and so often I've been told, oh, you know, don't get excited about it. I mean, it's always going to be there. But the question is, yeah, okay, I might be able to take a certain degree of kidding, but there's individuals who's going to respond. Example in this book, I think, or one of the books I've been reading recently, this gentleman from, well, actually he was a native of New Zealand. He'd walk into the classroom and the kids would always saying, would you fall in a pot of tar, or didn't you wash this morning? And this went on for quite some time. And everybody said, you know, we're just kidding. And he blew his stop. And he struck the individual that has been bullying him, and he immediately was suspended because and all the kids, the bystanders, says, I don't know, we didn't do anything, we were just kidding him. But rather than reacting or just saying, well, you know, you should take these little kidding things. So the problem is, to me, is if we get in the mindset it's always with us, we're not going to solve it. Ignoring the issue does not solve the issue.
Right. This is certainly one where you can't ignore it and just hope that it will go away.
Today's children are led to violence, hence you have suicides and killings. Right,
exactly. Let's talk a little bit back to your point, kind of, there's bullying, you know, like where does bullying take place? You made a good point that on cyberbullying, it's all weekend long, it's electronic, and it's pretty much any time, any place. But before the cyberbullying, bullying was taking place, you know, usually in certain places in a child's life, like as you said, on the bus. And we've seen lots of current incidences on buses or on a playground setting. Not usually right in the middle of the classroom where a teacher can do something about it. In the hallway, when they're at lockers or something like that, or maybe in gym. So, I mean, it's that kind of opportunity. I'd like you to say a little bit more about that. And cyberbullying really has changed that, obviously.
But it hasn't really changed it, because that is true. Yeah. Bullying takes place wherever they can get away with it. And kids are not stupid. They look for the places where the teachers aren't, you know, like you said, playgrounds and buses and hallways, and they know that. They know where they can isolate the victim and begin to do what they do. And that can be, even small children know how to do that. You know, different things that you read about bullying, they talk about how it peaks at like 10 and 11 years of age. Well, I'm not sure if I agree with that. What it does is it changes forms as you get older. I'm not sure it peaks, but it happens in the traditional places that it's always happened, which is why, and I would encourage the folks that are watching this to get involved in their schools. I'm a big supporter of teachers, and teachers have a tough job to do. But if parents volunteer more to monitor hallways and help in the playground or help in the cafeteria, then there's more eyes to watch where those kids are going to do what they're going to do.
Okay.
The other aspect in the same way is teachers have to be more sensitive and administrators to the school. I've been trying in the last year or two to spread awareness of bullying through the Dayton Exchange Club, to spread awareness. So I'm trying to get in schools primarily to say, do something to raise awareness. Now, the one school I'll reflect upon is Chaminade here in Dayton. They did a survey amongst the students. The seniors did a survey amongst the students just to raise their awareness, and they almost called me immediately and says, "We didn't realize." So bullying takes place everywhere, and it's only when the staff, the administration recognizes and tries to raise awareness. And then you've got it, as an administrator, as a teacher, we've got to set a school that is the atmosphere of the school or of the family of caring concern. And you got to respond. Many teachers could also be bullies. And this is where administrators got to recognize what's happening all levels, and you've got to, through dialogue, through student, and to me, you've got to involve the students, because the solutions are going to come from the kids. If they feel they have an atmosphere where they can relate to each other, there's in another book called Bullying, there's one girl, she resolved the problem by sitting down with some of her classmates, and this became literally a national movement where girl talk, should we say, and the kids have got to learn that they can talk to somebody rather than covering it up, because as Larry was saying, if I feel I'm being bullied, well, there's something wrong with me, and if I complain, I'm going to get bullied even more so. So the question is, we've got to create an atmosphere where people can talk and respect each other.
Okay, and find those places and those people. Do we have numbers in our local area for bullying? Do we have we know that cyberbullying makes it possible 24/7, but do we have numbers of incidents?
Well, the schools are required in their yearly report to put if those types of incidents. I looked at last year's state report, and obviously they're not doing that.
Okay.
Because it all depends. It's like any other statistic or number. You can make it say what you want it to say, or not say what you want it to say. And I think sometimes they'll take bullying and not call it that, but they'll call it something else. And so it's not as large as you would think. But here's an interesting number. The American Medical Association, I saw in a report that said something in the neighborhood of 165,000 students every day stay home from school because they don't want to go to class because they're being bullied. Now here's the thing about that. If there's 165,000 kids admitting that they're being bullied and don't want to go to school, just imagine how many more are that way. Because, let's face it, if you had children, you know how, it's usually, I got a headache, I don't feel good, this, that, or the other thing. They're not going to tell their parent, I don't want to go because I'm being picked on. So if 165,000 or so are admitting it, I would like to believe, well, unfortunately, I'd like to believe that that number is probably at least twice that are staying home from school. And when you think about how the consequences of that act, if they're not going to school, they're not learning. If they're not learning, they're not going to get good grades. If they're not getting good grades, and it just
spiral.
Snowball effect.
National Education Office Association, I should say, from the government, confirms Larry's statements. Bullying, it is estimated 160,000 children miss school every day due to fear of attack or intimidation by other students. 1 in 7 in grades K to 12 is either bullied or a victim of bullying. 71% of all students report incidents of bullying as a problem in their school. 282,000 students are physically attacked in secondary schools each month. These are statistics from the National Education Association.
Okay. And locally then, tell us a little bit about what schools in particular should be reporting. How are these incidents reported?
Well, last November, well, I shouldn't say, there's been a law in Ohio about bullying, and that schools have a duty and a policy prohibiting harassment and intimidation. It's actually in the Ohio Revised Code 3316.666, so if anybody wants to look that up in their spare time. But last November, because of the Jenny Logan Act, and I can talk a little bit about her in just a second,
Okay.
that law was changed to where it included the electronic. So now schools have the responsibility and a duty to report if kids are being bullied by electronic means, by harassment or intimidation, and the definition means an intentional, written, verbal, or electronic or physical act that a student has exhibited towards another particular student more than once. So there's one of the terms. It has to be more than once. If I say something one time by law, it's not considered bullying. And then it goes on and talks about it has to be sufficiently severe, persistent, and persuasive that it's affecting the environment. So that can be at a football game, a basketball game, it can be any school function. Schools have a duty to report. Now in that, they also have to have, schools are supposed to have some sort of way for the children to report it. And in most schools, what I'm finding they're doing is that they're creating some sort of box where kids can report it anonymously, because they have to have that. But I'm also surprised at the number of schools that still haven't gotten on board with that, because the kids have to have a place to where they feel safe to say the things that they need to say. So schools do have that duty to report.
Well, you know, when it's something that is observed, obviously the administrator, this teacher, whoever can see that. That cyberbullying, it's hard to report what you may not see. Yeah.
But you know what? School, even, you know, because all schools have computers now.
Yes, yes.
So if that happens on school computers, they have a responsibility. And there's plenty of safety things and features and even tracking ways to monitor those kinds of things. And unfortunately, those kids have a lot of access to the internet while they're at school. So they could be doing all kinds of things or with their cell phones. And if it happens at the school is responsible.
Okay.
Which, let me just say this too, let me add to this. Sometimes we get calls at the sheriff's office by parents who are irate about the fact that their child's being bullied or harassed or intimidated. And unfortunately, most of the time, if their child gets a threatening Facebook post or a threatening text message, the first thing that the parents do is delete it. Don't do that. Make sure you keep all of that type of material, because if it has to escalate to a criminal matter or even in the school administrative matter, you need to have the evidence. They're going to ask, the first thing the principal is going to say if you go in and say, hey, my son received a text message. Well, where is it? Deleted it. Well, it doesn't really do any good if you've deleted it.
Right. You have to show it.
Larry brought out the point earlier, the importance of parents being involved with their children. Parents really have to learn to relate with the teachers in not a challenging way. We would have to say that we're in this together. Mm-hmm. The teachers and the child and the parents have to become a team. And therefore, we have to be able to talk to each other and not yell at each other. And that is the crucial. The teachers today and administrators have a tremendous responsibility. And the technology that is coming up is really keeping them busy. But the important thing is to talk to each other.
Yes, that's very important. Have you, does the sheriff's office offer advice to schools on how to monitor these things?
Sure.
And how to prevent So any school that is working on revising their policy or their procedures and practices, does the box for anonymous reporting work?
You know, for some schools, it's a new thing. So they may have just started in the last less than a year. So I don't know, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I
Time will show us that.
Absolutely.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the Jessica Logan Act.
Let me just jump in one point, and then we'll get into that.
All right.
One of the things, again, that concerns me when I talk to administrators, they automatically say, we have the non-tolerance law, and they feel that resolves the issue. That does not resolve. No. You can say we have non-tolerance to bullying, but you've got to not only help the bullied, but also help the bully. You got to recognize that humanity is there, and you've got to work with it, and certainly not condone it, but work to resolve the issues. Get the bully to realize the emotions. How does he feel, and why does he feel this way? How do you think the bullied feels? And get them talking about why they're doing it and how they feel. But certainly it's an issue that we can't just say, well, it's always been with us and we don't tolerate it, and that's not going to resolve.
Right, you can't have the zero tolerance without some kind of action going on there, absolutely. All right, the Jessica Logan Act. I'm not sure very many people are aware of that.
I got a picture of Jessica. I don't know if they can pick that up on camera.
We'll try to
zoom in.
I'll hold it up here a minute while you're talking, and we'll see if we can zoom it in.
Jessica was a 17-year-old young lady in a suburb of Cincinnati a couple of years ago. That picture was her senior picture. Somewhere along those lines, an inappropriate picture was taken of her. I don't know if she took it of herself or if her friend took it, different stories. And was supposedly sent to her boyfriend the first time. Then it was forwarded over and over and over and over again. And before long, Jessica was getting hundreds and thousands of text messages, Facebook posts, multiple schools, a dozen or more schools, students from schools that she had no contact with, where she couldn't go to games or anything.
Yes.
And she was literally harassed and intimidated. She couldn't go to parties, she couldn't go any place. And to make a long story short, and the tragic end of that is one day Jessica's mom came home and couldn't find her. She called out for her. She went upstairs and she found Jessica hanging in a closet. Now this was a young lady who, if you could see the picture, she was an attractive young lady. She was sharp educationally, bright future, but who was just literally bullied to death. To the point
very sad.
And this happens many, many times in a variety of different ways. And the kids get to a point where they're saying death is better than living. So suicide, or I'm going to make a statement and shoot somebody. The little girl was being bullied. She went to her, she had enough. She eventually brought a gun. She went to the principal and he said, don't worry about it, it's not a big thing. She eventually got to a point where she brought a gun in, shot the individual who was bullying her, and then killed the principal. Now really, who's guilty?
Yeah, those are tough questions, very, very tough questions. Inaction that can lead to tragic consequences. So this act was then passed, and this act has a lot of, it's long, it has a lot in it, but I'll let you, as the law enforcement representative here, just briefly summarize what this calls on us to do.
Well, the big difference was last November, November the 4th of last year, the law added the electronic part of it. There was, prior to that, bullying was still in the Ohio Revised Code under harassment, intimidation, and bullying, under that definition. And after the Jessica Logan Act, they added that piece or section about electronic means as well. So that's the big difference. Now, it puts the onus on the school, if they know of those things, to make sure that they report it and they do what they have to do. And that may include involving law enforcement. It may not, but they have to take it serious because, as Don said, you know, if Jessica's was the only story, that would be tragic enough. But all you have to do is Google, you know, suicide and bullying together, and it'll make for a sad review, because it'll be dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of kids 10, 11, 12, 13 years old who've ended their lives because of bullying. And
they're going to respond in a variety of different ways. I'm just thinking of the child who brought a gun to school, a senior, one of the local schools in Cincinnati last year, and shot himself in the presence of the classmates. The question is, why? Others have done the same, and then they're merely trying to say to the individuals who've been bullying them, I'm going to show you I have power over myself, or I'm going to get you and make you feel bad. So when the mind snaps, and there's somebody, Columbine, you can mention over and over again. And today's gun law isn't going to resolve the issues.
Yes. Let's turn a little bit now, a little bit different focus to what the activities that you all are taking part in order to try to help raise awareness and make prevention real. Why don't we start by talking about your work with the Exchange Club, then we'll turn to the STAR program.
I was asked to join the Exchange Club a few years ago, and basically said, you know, I don't have time. Then I looked at the real mission statement, which of the Exchange Club is to promote American values, and secondly, to work for the elimination of cruelty to women and children. And as a religious educator, somebody who's given my life to working for the welfare of others, I said, how can I say no? So I immediately heard there was going to be a presentation, a group called STOP here in Dayton, Stop Prostitution. So I attended, and Teresa Flores spoke. So I met Teresa and read her book, The Slave That Lives Across the Street. Now on October the 1st, at St. Luke's Parish in Beaver Creek at 5:30, Teresa Flores is being brought to speak on the whole area of trafficking. And there's more sex trafficking today than, there's more slavery today than there's ever been in the time of the history. There's 27 million people caught up in slavery, and many of these are kids. Dayton, Ohio is a hub of human trafficking. So when I heard about this, I said, I've got to do something. Then I heard about Jody Blanco speaking at one of the local schools that had a suicide, and they brought Jody in to sort of raise awareness, sensitivity. So I read her two books, Please Stop Laughing at Me and Please Stop Laughing at Us, and heard her speak. And I said to myself at that time, as a former educator, administrator, I've got to do something as a representative of the Exchange Club, or primarily as a human being and as a religious educator, to do something. So we went on a limb and bought 350 copies of these books and spread them around schools in the area, encouraging the schools not only to read them, but to do something. So we have encouraged students to, as I say, at the one school, they did a survey of the student body, and then we had these students go to an elementary school. And through the Abolition Club at the University of Dayton, they sent students to other schools. So as I say, the solution has to come from the kids. We have to raise awareness, and we're not going to resolve anything until we understand, and then try to involve the youth. So my goal was to raise awareness, and again, I was able to, because of the work and the traveling I do, I had spread these books literally around the country, even to Australia. I gave them to all the Catholic schools in Miami, Florida. The important thing is awareness, and say, don't just read it and say, okay, it's always been with us. If we say that, we're not solving the problem, we're creating the problem.
Right. And just for the viewers who may not have a computer at their fingertips more easily than the book, She has a website, Jodee, Jodee, Blanco, BLANCO.com, where there's a lot of strategies and
She
discussion about bullying and what
Right.
parents and
She'll talk
educators.
about what a bully is,
Yeah.
who's bullied, here are the
Right.
characteristics of both, and here are things you should do to resolve these issues.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for your local work on that. Why don't we tell us a little bit about the program that you are working with?
Well, 2.5 years ago, at the sheriff's office, Sheriff Plummer and I sat down and under his leadership, and we created what we call the STARS program. The STARS program simply stands for this. It stands for Students Taking a Real Stand. And there are 5 points in the STARS program. The first one's we encourage kids to stand strong and where they won't be a bully. We also talk about standing smart to where we'll not use drugs and alcohol. We talk about standing still to where we think before we act. We talked about standing safe, where we talk about guns and knives and the problem with violence in our community. And then the 5th point of the STAR, we talk about standing and serving, where we will think about others before ourselves. Now, in particular, in those last 2.5 years, we've been across our county and probably have spoken to a little over 20,000 students on this topic. Everywhere from kindergarten to 12th graders. And you know, we challenge them to do a lot of what Don said. We talk to them about, and we use an acronym, the STARS acronym, STARS, and the first thing we talk to them about is the S, stay away from bullies. So in other words, if you're being bullied on the bus, don't sit by them. If you're being bullied on Facebook, delete them. So you have to stay away from them first off. We talk to them a little bit about find somebody to talk to about it, because you know, when we talked about Jessica and her ultimate suicide, kids need a place and people where they're safe. That's just not about bullying, that's about in life general. And unfortunately, because of the breakdown in the home and a lot of kids being raised by grandmas or aunts or you know, other people, there's not a lot of communication in the home. So they need to find somebody to talk to. So that's what the T, the A stands for avoiding bad choices, the R talks about respect, yourself and others, and then the last S again talks about thinking of others before yourself. And so one of the neat parts about that is when we go to the schools, it's real interactive, real hands-on, we use a lot of kids. But one of the things I've learned, and Don talked about a lot, and I just want to say this, because you have the 3 B's in bullying, the bully, the bullied, and the bystanders. And the bystander has the power. I am convinced of that. And the reason why I do that, I always bring up a student, and it doesn't matter if it's a 1st grader or a 12th grader, and I have them role play them bullying me. So they'll push me or call me a name or whatever. And it's always interesting because initially the student is hesitant because, you know, here's this guy in a uniform and should I say anything or should I pick on, you know. And so they do something tentative at first. They'll give me a little tentative push or tentative poke or call me a tentative name. And it's always amazing at the response of the audience, the bystanders. They chuckle. And when they chuckle, the student gets a little braver. He pushes a little harder, steps it up a little with the name calling. They laugh even more. And after that, I ask them, I say, let me ask you a question. How did that make you feel? I asked them, first off, I said, how did the bystanders respond? Well, they laughed. And how did that make you feel? Good. They always say that. And I asked them, because I said, did that make you feel like you wanted to do it more or louder or stronger? And every kid at every school has always said yes to that. And then I talked to them, I got, okay, now the next step, you and I begin to exchange, you know, words with each other. Before long, we want to fight. And what happens when there's a fight? The crowd starts chanting, and the kids always start going, fight, fight, fight. And I said, and if you know I'm going to fight, that we're going to fight after school at this corner, what's the bystanders going to do? They're going to come running. They're going to get their cell phones out and video and put it on YouTube. And I asked them this question. If you and I were going to fight and nobody showed up, there was nobody there to egg us on or say, hey, you're a chicken, or this, that, it's just me and you looking at each other in a field somewhere. Do you think we'd fight? Every time? the kids have said no. That's the power of the bystander. So we have to change the dynamic in the school or in whatever culture they're in to where kindness and being nice to each other and random acts of kindness where it really matters. You know, so we took it to the next step. We created a certificate, a STARS certificate, that we go to the schools, and we go, often some of the schools we go quarterly or however the need is. And they invite us in, and we created a sheriff signs that we show up. We do a little extra special thing for them because the smart kids always get recognized. The kids that don't miss school get recognized. But you know who don't get recognized is just your average kid that's just nice. So we encourage them to recognize kids. If they see a kid that falls in the playground and another student picks him up, recognize that kid for a change. Give them a note of that, because that's what's got to change, where kids are not laughing at the disadvantaged kid or the disabled kid or the different kid or the fat kid, the skinny kid, but they're responding in a positive way. So when the bully does do what they do, the bystanders say, not here, not in our school, not in our classroom. And if we can get that dynamic changed, then bullying can begin to be diminished in, I think, a great, great way. When it's no longer popular, no longer life-giving. Because when the bystanders respond you're giving the bully life and the power to keep doing it. So if we can get kids to change that mindset, and I've learned in the 2.5 years that we've been doing that's one of the key principles, is we've got to get the other kids to stand up for one another in a positive way.
And what kind of response are you finding you've been to many, many schools, and you're ready to go anytime one calls you to do it again. And we'll give you a chance to give your phone number before we go off the air. But what response are you finding?
Well, here's the problem. It's cultural for the bystanders to laugh. It's cultural for the bystanders to watch. It's cultural for the bystanders to run to the fight instead of try to stop the fight. So we didn't get to that negative bystander overnight. We're not going to change it overnight. But that doesn't mean we don't try. And that's why I appreciate what Don said. You know, we can't just accept it, that boys will be boys and it's going to be. We've got to change the dynamic. We've got to do whatever we can to diminish it. Because while you may not have been affected, or I've not been affected, the Jessicas in our lives are being affected every day. So we have to reinforce the message. And most schools have these types of messages anyways. So what we do, the STARS program, really just hopefully is reinforcing what they're standing for. And it's just done in a different way.
I think we have to realize from the very beginning of life, we all need to be accepted, respected, loved, valued. And unless I get this, I'm not going to grow in a healthy fashion. If something is missing, it's going to show up somewhere along my line. And if I have these deficiencies that I needed along the line, I'm not going to get, it's going to affect my whole life. Now, I feel, at least in the schools that I've been associated with and our group, is we've got to create a culture. First of all, you've got to involve the staff. You've got to let the staff realize that they're more than just, and well, I used to say I don't like to employ good teachers. I can get a computer. I only want educators to be on my staff. Individuals who are caring and concerned about that child. I don't care if you are a great French teacher, but if you abuse kids, you're not a good teacher. We are only teaching as a means of educating. Our presence has to have a culture that it means I am caring about you, kid, what God has made you for, and how you can be successful in this life. And above all, that means your whole personality has to be cultivated. We cannot allow in the schools anything that's going to be negative or destroying. And a bully, and it can be the culture, and I think today's culture is that, is to destroy. Me, and not us. So we have to create a culture within our schools, within our families, that people can grow.
We've talked quite a bit, we've heard about changing the behavior of the bystanders and about the need for the caring in the teachers. Let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that, the best ways for adults to respond when they see this happening, because I would imagine that other than experienced educators like yourself, some may be unsure. So what do you advise for adults to do when they're aware of this, whether they're in a school, whether they're in a church setting, whether they're at a team, whatever it is, when they see this, what steps would you all advise?
First of all, I think we have to look at ourselves, and not somebody else, but look at ourselves. Am I a bully? And I think we have to all say yes to some degree. Where am I bullying? Am I a bully on the road behind the wheel? Am I a bully in the family? I was reading a book recently where, now this is in a different country, the woman was indicating she is nothing but a sex item for her husband and somebody to beat up on. We have to change the culture. What is the culture of my family? What is my own vision? First of all, look at ourselves. Then secondly, we have to respond not in a threatening way, but talk to the individual and say, is that proper? Or how do you feel? Maybe you could have done it a different way. But we have to create an atmosphere where dialogue is taking place, especially for children, that they can come to their parents or to a teacher and feel not to being threatened.
Right, thank you.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. And one of the things that I often have gotten asked to do as well is to mediate in situations. And oftentimes it is an eye-opening experience when you watch some of the parents come in. The first thing a parent needs to do if they find out that their children, or they suspect that their child is being bullied, is that they need to listen to them. They need to hear what they're saying, what it looks like, what kind of shape it's taking. Because it may be bullying, it may not be bullying. It may be more serious than that, and they need to listen to their child, gauge what it is. Then they need to ask the child what they want them to do. Now, I'm not saying they need to necessarily listen to what the child wants them to do, because the child may not want them to do anything. And sometimes parents have to do what kids don't want them to do. But it's important that parents are open and not overreact. Not overreact to the situation that the child's going through, and definitely don't show up at the principal's door ranting, raving, and screaming. Because everybody's a human. And if you come at me like a lunatic, I'm not going to listen to you. I really don't want to hear what you have to say, because you probably just invalidated. Even if it's truth, I can't even hear what you're saying because you're so emotional. So make sure you get your facts right. But we created, the Sheriff's Office created this little pamphlet, Parent's Guide to Bullying, that we have available, that we give out at the schools or wherever we're at. And some of the things that we say about that is, and I said this earlier, but I'll say it again, students or parents need to get involved in their schools. I know most of them are working, but they can still get involved somehow. Once in a while, find out what the school's policies are on bullying. But be persistent. If they're not satisfied with the teacher, go to the next level. If they're not satisfied with the principal, go to the next level. There's a superintendent. If they're not satisfied with the superintendent, there's a school board meeting that they can go to. Be persistent, but try to do it with the least amount of emotion. But I can't overestimate the importance for parents to get involved in the school, to see what's going on, to be there to help if it's at all possible.
In the same aspect, parents must realize what it means to be a parent.
Yeah.
That is, they're there to guide and to protect their child. And this child is an innocent, he or she needs the opportunity to grow. And they have to have an atmosphere where they can express themselves. Now, a bullied child is fearful of saying anything for fear that he or she's going to get bullied even more so. And if they go to administration, wow, I'm really in trouble. At times you tell your parents, and the parents just grow up, they're just jealous of you. The parents have got to learn to listen and see the nonverbals, and not be judgmental, but be supportive.
And what kind of things should parents be on the lookout for?
Changes in behavior.
Okay.
changes in their academic behaviors, changes in their social behaviors. If they don't want to go to things that they used to go to, that's a good sign. You know, it's also a sign for a lot of other things, but it's a sign that's saying that things aren't right. Let me just add another thing, because we're talking about the parents of the kid that's being bullied.
Right.
You know, there's other side to that too.
Yes.
There's the parent of the bully.
Correct.
Parents have got to teach their children that it's never acceptable to be cruel. It's never acceptable to pick on people. It's never acceptable to harm others physically, verbally, or to separate people based on all the differences there are.
Right, thank you.
And it's important that the parents of the bully take responsibility as well. That child just didn't happen to be a bully. He didn't come out of the womb as a bully.
As you said earlier,
Yeah.
it's a learned behavior. Well, let's talk a second.
Just two other things. If children are losing clothing,
Okay.
or if they're coming home with marks on their body,
Okay.
or their clothing is torn or disrupted, that's signs.
That's a real clear sign. Now, when is bullying a crime? And we'll have to get a quick answer here. And in what ways are the parents of the bulliers responsible?
And that's a fine line. Like I said earlier, that if I put my hands on you, that's assault. Now, the problem is with juvenile law, it's totally different.
Yes.
They have a whole different language in how it's handled. And there's a problem. The justice system still has to catch up with this. The justice system has a tendency to think old school, that boys will be boys, and bullying is just kind of something they've got to live with, and they're hesitant to jump in. Well, unfortunately, sometimes it's too late then.
We are quickly losing our time here. So, have we had cases where parents have been held responsible for their children's behavior? Or it hasn't reached to that?
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Okay. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that I give you the chance to get your phone number out there and anything else that we've gone by so fast that you really need to say, and then we'll do the same with you. Go ahead. How do we reach the STARS program?
Okay, they can call my office. My name again is Larry Lane, Lane, and my office number is 496-6694, 496-6694. And we go wherever. It can be a small group, a parent group, a school, a church, a business group. We don't care. Wherever we're invited, we'll go to bring this message.
That's excellent. Thank you for doing that. Yes, sir.
Well, I merely my name again, Brother Don Neff.
Yes.
My problem is I'm leaving the area within 2 weeks.
All right.
But I'm certainly 937-367-8357. I'd be happy to talk to anybody. But I'd like to merely stress the fact that there are many agencies out there that are available to turn to for help. And please don't ignore these signs. Turn to these agencies, to the Sheriff's Office, to Care Center, the many agencies that are there. All you have to do is ask for help.
Okay. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
I would let my clothing start would be the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And recognize the fact that we are on a journey. Life is a journey. And we're going to have to be accountable to how we live the life. And the question is, we are here to assist each other. The Lord says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And we're going to be judged according to how I respect. And I can't respect you if I don't respect me. So learn to look into that mirror and say, do I like the person that I'm looking at?
Thank you.
I think the one thing I would say is this: don't underreact. Take it seriously. If you're a parent listening to this and your child talks about the fact that they're being bullied, they need to listen. They need to take it serious, and they need to do something to get that stopped in the life of their child before it creates so many other problems in the life of that child. before they pull back and it affects them academically, or they pull back and it affects them socially.
Okay. Thank you both very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate this good program and good information. Thank you.